Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. My name is Mutiara Rahmatika, and today I would like to present my midterm project about my experience using artificial intelligence or AI for learning English. Nowadays, technology is developing very rapidly, and AI has become an important part of our daily lives, including in education. Many students, including me, use AI tools to support our learning process. In language learning, especially English, AI is very helpful because it allows us to learn more independently, more flexibly, and more actively. In this presentation, I will focus on my personal experience using ChatGPT to improve my English skills. I will divide my presentation into two parts. First, I will talk about my experience using AI for learning English. Second, I will explain my experience using ChatGPT for speaking practice. AI helps language learning in many ways. It makes the learning process easier, faster, and more flexible. For example, students can learn anytime and anywhere without needing to meet a teacher or lecturer directly. This is very helpful for independent learning. In my experience, AI helps me become a more independent learner. I don't always depend on my lecturer or classmates because I can explore and learn by myself. I use ChatGPT as my main tool for learning English. I use it quite often, especially when I study alone. My main goal is to improve my English skills step by step, especially grammar, writing, and vocabulary. Sometimes I understand the theory, but I need more practice. That's why I use ChatGPT to support my learning process. In my learning process, I mainly use ChatGPT. ChatGPT is a self-learning tool, which means I can study independently without always depending on a teacher or lecturer. For example, when I don't understand a lesson, I can directly ask ChatGPT. This makes the learning process faster because I don't need to wait. Another advantage is flexibility. I can use ChatGPT anytime and anywhere. For example, I usually use it at home, especially at night when I review my lessons. And I think this is really helped me manage my own learning time. Also, ChatGPT is very easy to use. The features are simple and clear, so even beginners can use it without feeling confusion. Because of these reasons, I feel ChatGPT is very suitable for students like me who want to learn independently. ChatGPT helps me in many aspects of learning. First, I use it to learn grammar. For example, when I don't understand tenses, I ask ChatGPT to explain them in a simple way. Sometimes I also ask for more examples so I can understand better. Not only that, but I also ask ChatGPT to compare similar grammar forms. For example, I ask the difference between present perfect tense and past simple tense. This helped me understand more deeply. Second, I use ChatGPT for practice exercises. For example, I ask ChatGPT to create multiple choice questions. Then I answer them, and then ChatGPT gives me feedback and explanations. I think this process helps me learn from my mistakes. Third, I use ChatGPT for writing correction. For example, I write a paragraph about my daily activities, and ChatGPT helps me fix my grammar and improve my sentence structure. Sometimes it also gives suggestions to make my writing more natural. I also use ChatGPT for vocabulary learning. For example, I ask about the meaning of new words, synonyms, and how to use them in sentences. Because of this, I can expand my vocabulary and use words more correctly. From all these activities, I feel that my English skills improve gradually. Now, I will move to the second part, which is speaking practice. For me, using ChatGPT for speaking practice is very easy and practical. For example, I can start speaking directly without preparation. I don't need to write first or think too much, and I can just start talking about the random topic. And this is very helpful because sometimes I feel lazy to prepare, but with ChatGPT I can still practice. Another advantage is that I can practice anytime. For example, when I have free time, I can open ChatGPT and start speaking practice. Because I can practice more often, I can improve my speaking English faster. Also, I feel more comfortable practicing with ChatGPT because I am not afraid of making mistakes because there is no judgment. And this makes me more confident and relaxed when practice speaking. These are several features that make ChatGPT is very helpful for speaking practice. First, ChatGPT can summarize my speech. For example, after I finish speaking, ChatGPT gives a summary of what I said. This helps me know if my ideas are clear or organized. Second, ChatGPT asks follow-up questions. For example, if I talk about my daily activities, it asks more questions related to that topic. This makes the conversation more interactive and feels like a real conversation for me. Another important feature is that it feels like a real conversation partner. I feel like I am talking to a real person, not just a machine or AI. Also, the AI voice sounds natural. For example, when I listen to the response, it sounds like a real human voice. And helps me practice listening and speaking at the same time. Because of these features, I feel more engaged and enjoy the speaking practice more. Another important part is feedback. ChatGPT gives me feedback in many aspects. First, ChatGPT helps me fix my grammar when I make mistakes. Second, ChatGPT helps me understand how to pronounce words more correctly. Third, it helps me choose better and more natural vocabulary. And it also helps me improve my fluency so I can speak more smoothly and confidently. Because of this feedback, I can learn from my mistakes and improve step by step. I think this feedback is very important because it shows me that what I need to improve when I speak English. However, there are also some challenges for me. One challenge is that ChatGPT sometimes repeats the same questions. For example, it asks similar question again, so it feels a bit repetitive for me. And another challenge is that sometimes it can be confusing. For example, I need to explain my answer again and again to make it clearer. Sometimes I also feel unsure about my pronunciation because I don't always get a real human correction. However, even with these challenges, I still think ChatGPT is very helpful, and the advantages are much greater than the disadvantages. Overall, I think ChatGPT is a very useful tool for speaking practice. It helps me practice speaking regularly and it makes the learning process more effective. And it also improves my confidence because I can practice without fear of making mistakes. So, I will definitely continue using ChatGPT for speaking practice in the future. Because of ChatGPT, I feel more confident, more comfortable, and more motivated to improve my English speaking skills. That's all my presentation. Thank you for your attention. Wassalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.